So hi, everybody. I'm Kim Skates, Membership Relations Manager at Central Houston. Welcome to our Chime January program, Leadership in Action. You guys are all here because your organizations have already identified you as somebody who's a bright rising star in the organization with leadership potential. My friend Judy Lee, who teaches a leadership class at Rice University, says leadership is really just empathy with different packaging. So it makes sense that, as future leaders, you might want to take those skills and share those skills outside of the office with the broader community. So that's kind of why we're here today. And as you try to do that, it can be challenging to know where to start. As you know, Houston is the fourth largest city in the country. It's statistically the most diverse city in the country. There are tons of opportunities to get involved, but where and how can be a little bit tricky. So we have two great speakers here with us today to give us some ideas around that. I have a couple housekeeping notes before we start. Most of you are already on mute. If you would stay on mute while we have this discussion, that would be really helpful, just so we don't have any interruptions. You are welcome to turn your video on or off as you choose. No pressure either way. We know it's lunch hour. But if you would, please drop us a note in chat to let us know that you're here, say hello. And as you do that, also let us know how long you've been involved with Chime. Let's see, I think you will get the best experience out of this program if you set your Zoom to speaker view. So in the top right corner of your screen, you'll see a word that says view and a little icon. And if you put that on speaker, that would be great. I also just want to alert you to a new video series that we have started called Chime on Demand. You can find the two videos that we've produced already at the Central Houston Inc. YouTube channel. So check those out if you get a chance, and let us know if you want to be involved in future Chime on Demand programs. We'd love to have you involved. And then, of course, our chat is open, so please utilize that. And if you have any questions, we will answer all of those in the end. So let's go ahead and get started. I would like to tell you about our two speakers today. We have Maria Montes, who is the director at the Houston Mayor's Office Boards and Commissions, and then also Chris Johnsen, who is Vice President of Programming at Leadership Houston. So let's start by having each of you tell us a little bit about yourselves and your organization. Maria, let's start with you.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It's right after 12. I'm Maria Montes. I'm a native Houstonian. Went to school in Virginia, came back home, got my MBA at UHD. I've worked in politics. I've worked on way too many campaigns that I can count. I've worked for Senator Ellis and made my way here to the mayor's office, where I assist the mayor in finding talent for the city's over 100 boards and commissions. So these boards and commissions deal with everything from Metro to BARC to parks, libraries, to economic development, housing, you name it. There's probably a board or a commission that deals with that topic here in the city, and I'm glad to be here with you all today.
Great, thanks. Chris?
Sure, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Johnsen. I'm the VP of Programs with Leadership Houston. I am a board member. I am not an employee. I'm here to represent Leadership Houston as a board member and someone that went through the program and speaks very highly of the program. I'm here with Claudia and Brooke. They keep me in line. They do work for Leadership Houston. They keep the whole thing running while the board helps support the program. So I look forward to telling you more about Leadership Houston today when we get to some of the subsequent questions.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. Well, welcome to you both. We do really appreciate you both being here. Maria, tell us a little bit why people get involved with boards and commissions.
Yes, so like I mentioned, the city has over 100 boards and commissions, so there's definitely a high volume of opportunity for individuals to get involved. And so people get involved because the opportunity is there, because of the the fact that they get to say, right, that council or the mayor, all of them have to approve their nomination and subsequently them joining a board or commission. They join because of the network, so you get to interact with people from all over town, right? Anything from maybe young millennials who are trying to get leadership skills to more seasoned individuals who have been, who are VP CEOs of their companies. And also because I think there's obviously that factor that you get to contribute to your city, the development of your city, and that there's an impact, right, that you can make in your own city through your skills, whatever they may be.
And Maria, what does that commitment look like? If somebody joins a board or a commission, what does that mean?
So it just depends. Each board is different. So some boards have a term commitment of 1 year up to 4 years. And in terms of meetings, some of these boards meet once a month, others meet quarterly, or some of them may have a monthly board meeting, but then they'll have subcommittees. And so if you're in one of those subcommittees, then obviously you probably will meet with that subcommittee either once a month or every other month. So it just depends on the particular board that you're interested in. And I'm always happy to talk to individuals who might be interested in a board to let them know the time commitment to make sure that they have that time to contribute to that board or commission.
Great. Chris, tell us about in Leadership Houston, how does that program work?
Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about Leadership Houston. I'll tell you guys how the program works. So our mission is to, I'm going to read this off the website. It's to enlighten, empower, and engage diverse community leaders through a broad knowledge of Houston and increase their civic leadership capacity for the benefit of Greater Houston. So the way I understood Leadership Houston was that when the program was founded, there were many leaders. There were people out there doing great things. But like many industries, we can get siloed in our own work group. So I'm an attorney by trade. I know a lot of attorneys. Maybe I might not know a whole lot of teachers or health professionals, things like that. So the founding people decided we need to connect those leaders together so they can make a greater impact and a difference in the community. So segueing into the actual answer to the question would be, how is the class structured? First of all, it's structured by selecting a diverse group of leaders among the Greater Houston community. So we actually have quotas. I know it's kind of a bad word, but there might be only 2 lawyers allowed. There might be only 2 healthcare people, 2 marketing, 2 government, 2 nonprofit, and I'm making those numbers up. Don't take them for a grain of salt. And then we also try to get diversity with race, with gender, with all those things. So we have a really holistic, accurate reflection of our community in our smaller group, which typically ranges from about 50 to 60 people in the cohort. And then I think of the structure of the program, and this calendar, if you're interested, is all online at leadershiphouston.org. You can see the calendar for the current class. I think of it like a school year. The kids go to school in August, the kids end school in May, June. Same thing with us. The kids start with an opening retreat in the August timeframe, end of August, beginning September. It's a real deep dive with the relationships of your class. It's like 2 days. There's a lot of great activities, team building. And then it's 1 Friday a month, the whole Friday, and it's focused on a different part of Houston, which is really fun. So you can see the topics, but for instance, we'll have, Economy Day, and then the Federal Reserve traditionally hosts that. We'll have Health and Wellness Day, and typically that's somewhere in the medical center, at least for part of the day. And it always changes. The program's constantly evolving, but that's the general format. And then there's a class project, and then there's a closing retreat. So that's typically how each year's class works.
Great, great. And Chris, why do people typically get involved in Leadership Houston?
So I'm sure for many reasons, many different reasons, and I'll speak my personal experience. So why did I get involved with Leadership Houston? So I came from Florida, 2000, end of 2009, so a little over 10 years ago. And one of the first things I did before even leaving, I remember sitting in Orlando and I'm researching things to get involved with when I go to Houston. For a number of things, so I can give back to the community, but also so I could connect with the community and meet people, because I was, coming from somewhere else. I didn't know anyone. I didn't grow up with anyone in high school or college or any of that stuff. So Leadership Houston was one of the first things that popped up. And then throughout the office, people told me about Leadership Houston. There were other people in my office that had gone through the class. So why did I get involved with Leadership Houston? To connect with people in the community and develop relationships with people in the community. That was very important. And then two, to figure out what I might want to do next, which I think is part of this discussion today, is kind of like, what's out there? What can I do next? Because that's so daunting, right? And so I think Leadership Houston kind of gives you the lay of the land. It kind of throws everything out there. It doesn't tell you what you should do afterwards. But it says, like, these are the opportunities that are available to you, and then you can choose to take them.
I think that's great. Yeah, my favorite leadership quote is John Maxwell, and he says, if you're leading and no one's following, you're really just taking a walk. So this conversation really is about how to get plugged in and how to get connected. So I'm great. It's just great that you found that through Leadership Houston. Maria, you talked a little bit before about why people get involved in boards and commissions, but do you want to address that a little bit further?
Sure. And I think I'll be honest, Kim, I think part of this, the way I respond will probably also bleed into the next question.
Okay.
So when individuals join, right, they want to use their skills in a board or commission that needs that skill. But I also try to get individuals to think beyond. For example, if they're an attorney, I say, you don't need to be the attorney on the board, right? We don't need your legal expertise on this particular board, because you're not, some of these boards or commissions actually might have a city legal individual who sits in on these meetings and is there to ensure that the board is following the rules and regulations relating to the city. But it's more of, we need the skills that allowed you to be, right, an attorney on this particular board or commission. And so individuals obviously want to serve, want to get involved, want to give back. And what that leads to when they join a board or commission is that they learn about the board and commission that they're serving on. They learn about the budgets that a lot of these boards and commissions have. They learn about the joint agreements. So a lot of these boards and commissions actually have joint agreements with either HISD or Harris County Commissioner's Court. And usually these agreements exist via financial contributions, obviously. And furthermore, a lot of these boards or commissions fall under a specific city department. And so while you're on the board, for example, if you're serving on a TERS, which is a tax increment reinvestment zone, you end up learning a lot about what the economic development department at the city does, right? And why this specific organization exists. So you join to serve, and then you end up obviously learning a lot about the intricacies of how government works, how the city works, how all these budgets come to be, how some of it might be city money, grants, and then again, partnerships. So money from the county and money from HISD for this particular board or commission.
That's great. So both of these organizations really give you a window into the real inner workings of the city outside of just the individual mission of the organization. Chris, tell us about Leadership Houston for 2021. What's the outlook for the organization?
2021. So I say kind of go by school year. So I'm going to kind of back up. I don't really think calendar year. I'm thinking kind of school year. So really our 2021, let me start with now up until the new school year. And right now we're in virtual mode. We pivoted, I think, quite well at the beginning of the pandemic to continue our classes, our schedule, our education. It's still been very engaging. It's not 100% virtual. There are also smaller meetup groups, things like that. So I expect that to continue throughout the remainder of this school year, starting next school year, which will be September of this year, all the way through 2022. I hope with the vaccine and other things that we can pivot back to our more traditional format. But that still really hasn't been decided. A lot with a lot of organizations, we're just playing it by ear and just trying to decide the best way to provide value to our classes.
So I know with Leadership Houston, every year the class does a big community service project, and I think you referenced that. Has that been decided for this class year? What are they working on?
Claudia, remind me, what is their project?
So this year, Kim, the group is collecting stories to put together through a website, sharing stories about their journey, about what 2020 was like for them, why they live in our great city, what got them here, what they do, would have been some of their struggles and challenges. So it will be a combination of, I think, as far as we know to date, a webinar, a web page, sorry, and possibly a hard copy if we get that far. But that's pretty much what they're working on.
So the
and that's all evolving. So that's why Claudia gave us a good synopsis. It could evolve. It's not going to substantially change, but it could evolve by the time they actually do their project.
So the stories they're collecting, the participants are providing the stories, or they're interviewing community members?
They are interviewing community members, and I will post the link to what they have going on right now so that you can get a better idea.
That's great. That's great. Maria, what about 2021 for boards and commissions?
So 2021 is a little bit of a continuation of 2020 in the sense that the mayor's really big on diversity for the boards and commissions. He really wants these boards and commissions to reflect the diversity of our city. So I have my work cut out for me. I need to increase not just diversity, but the number of young people who participate on these boards and commissions. And a really big one that I'm also focusing on is increasing the number of people with disabilities across all of these boards and commissions. And I have a great relationship with Director Gabe Casares. He's the director of the Office of People with Disabilities. I did a brief presentation to his group yesterday, and so I've been requesting that commission's help as well to ensure that people with disabilities are represented across these boards and commissions, that their needs, that their issues that they're passionate about are addressed everywhere, right? From the parks to the libraries to Metro to housing issues that they might need. So that's what 2021 looks like.
That's great. That's great. So as you do that, how can our Chime members get involved?
So I've put in the chat a link to the city's boards and commissions. So there you can see what the board is. There's a brief description. You can click on the member roster. You can see who currently serves there. You can see how many of those individuals are up for, you can see if their terms expired. And so usually when a term expires, the mayor has obviously the option to reappoint or to bring in someone new. And so I would say, go and look through the list, pick out the ones that interest you the most. And then I think the best advice is to try to, obviously everything's virtual right now. So I would say, if there's a board that interests you, join a board meeting, right? Sit in on the meeting, listen to what they talk about, listen to how they vote, see if if while you're in the meeting, if that is something that you could see yourself being involved with, right? You may join a meeting and say, you know what, this topic is not really interesting, or, you know, it looks like something that I wouldn't be able to do. And so once you do that, I think that gives you a really good picture of what you would be getting yourself into. And then I would say fill out the application, but also follow up with an email. Let me know. You'll once you apply online through our online application, you get an auto response with my email there. And so I would say reach out, let me know, you know, say, hey, Maria, I did the Chime. I was a part of the Chime presentation, and I applied to these three, my top three. And, you know, I'd be more than happy to call you and give you an update, because each board and commission is different, right? So there might be a board where I'll say, you know what, the mayor is actually going to reappoint everyone to that one, right? Or I'll say, I know there's expired terms, but because of the load of boards that I'm working on, it's January, but I won't get to it till March, right? So that your expectations are met in terms of the process and the timeline.
Are there any certain types of groups that you would recommend to people who are just starting to get involved with city organizations?
I mean, I think it just really depends what their skills are in. There are boards that deal with, I think some of the entry ones, right, are they deal with nonprofits. So there's a board that reviews nonprofits called the Board of Public Trust, and they determine which nonprofits throughout the city that focus on women and children, which ones are awarded funds, small funds, but nevertheless funds that a lot of these nonprofits need. That would be a good one. And then there is a Millennial Board, but at the moment, just as an FYI, because I know that one can be enticing. We did have over 100 individuals interested in that one, so they're kind of we're narrowing down that very, very long list for that particular board. But there are other boards. So, for example, if someone's really interested in the Library Foundation, obviously, they raise a lot of funds for the library, but they also have a young professionals board, so that would be sort of a stepping stone. So where you get involved with the library, and then at some point in your career, you could, you'd probably be in a better position to transition to the Library Foundation board itself.
And do you find that once someone gets involved with these, that they move around, like they have some experience on the library board and then they move over to a TERS and they do something else? Is the experience helpful for them?
Yes, absolutely. So what helps me advocate for an individual as well is exactly that, right? So I'll say, Mayor, this person has served on the Young Professionals Library Board for 3 years. They've participated, they attend meetings, they're active members, and now they would like to, they have, mentioned to me that they would really like to serve on this particular TERS, right? And so that makes a case for them. That they've already been involved in a sort of beginner board, and that they're now ready to be involved with one of the more higher level or higher to get into types of boards. And then also I'll mention too with TERSs, there is, I'll try to put the link in the chat in a minute, but depending where that TERS is, every TERS has a council member. Obviously geographically it's in a council member's district, and so when I work on TERSs, I obviously have to get the mayor to sign off on any sort of nominee, but I also touch base with the council member for that TERS. So it's important for everyone in general, not just because of the TERS, but I think in general, right? I think in terms of your civic life, civic duties, I think it's important for individuals to get to know their elected officials. You may not like the party they're from, you may not agree with all of their political views, but I think if you find common ground in the sense that, okay, you're my council member and I live in this area and I care about my neighborhood, being clean and being safe and all those sorts of things, I think it's, in general, it's a good rule to try to just reach out and develop those relationships with those elected officials.
That's great encouragement. Chris, how about getting involved in Central Houston? I know you talked about the school year and you said there are some timelines in the chat, but what can you tell the group about getting involved?
Sure. Well, I've got something for next month that's open to everyone, and that's part 2 of a leader's role in eradicating systemic racism. Part 1, we did sometime over the summer last year, shortly after protests. We felt like we needed to do something on topic with that topic. And there were a lot of people, alumni, that had gone through the program that were like, what can I do to help? So we tried to address some of that. And that part 1 was just for the alumni. Part 2, we're opening it up a little more, and we're having speakers that are not alumni. We're opening it up more to the community to participate in the program. So I think that's really great. And there will be other parts this year. So I don't have a date, but the best thing to do would just be like our Facebook page, like our LinkedIn page, because we will post it on there. And then you can get all the information you need to join that event.
Okay.
We also have, we are accepting applications to the program now, and we're going to have an information session on February 11th. So if you'd like to learn more about the program, you could join that information session. So that's the best way to get involved, is do the program. But then there also are some, events that we try to have throughout the year, and I mentioned that one.
That's great. That's great. And it sounds like you have a very active alumni group. So you go through the program for the year, but a lot of your people stay involved for years after. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's accurate. There's a certain percentage of people that stay involved in Leadership Houston. And then I would say close to 100% of the people are involved in the community in some capacity or another. They may not be involved, their giving back may not be through Leadership Houston. It may be some nonprofit, some board. We're all busy. We all have jobs and families and all that. There's only so much we can do. But what I will say is, there are a lot of people that are passionate about what they got out of Leadership Houston, and they do give back.
Mm-hmm. So I think that concludes our formal questions for the panelists. Does the group have any questions? If you do, if you would go ahead and pop those into chat, I'm sure they'd love to answer your questions. And while we're waiting for that, Chris, I'd just like to ask you, in your experience with Leadership Houston, what was the most impactful class day for you?
Health and Wellness Day. I thought Health and Wellness Day was very impactful for me. And I think for many of our classmates. There were a lot of very impactful days, but at least in my class, I don't, they might do it differently now. We were tasked with taking care of our health, but on a low budget, on assistance. We had to take public transportation. We had to go to a certain clinic. We had to have lived the day in the life of perhaps many of our residents, unfortunately, here in Houston. So that was very impactful, walking in someone else's shoes for at least part of the day for me.
That's great. We do have a question about the cost for Leadership Houston. What can you tell us about that?
That's is that on the website, Claudia?
It is, Chris. Right now, tuition is at $4,500. It is a 10-month program, and there are opportunities for partial scholarships. So we can post a little more information about that.
And I will say, I know about Central Houston because of Leadership Houston, and I learned about it through there. And Ryan Leach was in my class, if you know Ryan. He was your general counsel for some time.
He was, that's right, yeah. Yeah, there's always a community day where the Leadership Houston class comes over to Central Houston and hears a little bit about the history of our organization and learns a little bit more about downtown Houston. Okay, so Here's a question for Maria. Maria, you want to follow along in the chat with this one? This is about entry and beginner boards. Adam is looking through the list now and doesn't see any sort of designation on which ones those might be. Do you have some advice for Adam?
Yes, so there is a difference. There are TERSs and there are districts, which are management districts. So the management districts operate a little different. They are created through the Texas legislature and approved by the city. And so with management districts, the boards themselves typically have on an annual basis a designated timeframes. With the management districts that I've worked with, it's usually around October, November, where they'll put out a call for members. They will take applications, review applications. The management district board themselves sort of does this and then decides and votes on new members. Once they have done that, they send a letter to us at the city for approval of these new members. And should we have any issues with the member, we'll communicate with the management district, but if there's no issue there, then the appointment letter then goes to council for an up or down vote. And because we obviously have a good relationship with the management districts, we can also on our city side sometimes recommend a certain individual to that management district, but we can recommend someone, but the board itself obviously will go through their interview process and they don't have to, approve our recommendation. And also with TERSs and with management districts, they typically want individuals who live within the boundaries of those districts or TERSs, but residents or business owners, it's not written anywhere, but it's preference is given to business owners because these entities tax businesses in order to do the work that they do. So that's the reason for that. But if you're a member, even though I know you're looking, I know you said there is no designation on sort of which ones are beginners, but I think the ones that are the harder to get on, I think, are also kind of the highly coveted ones, right? The Houston Sports Authority, Metro, Houston First, the Port of Houston Authority, the Pilots Commission. Those are some of the higher level ones. And then what I would say, like if you were interested in the East End Management District, I would say start going to those meetings because also if you're present, if the board sees you, hey, this person has been to our board meetings for the past, 3 months and they're just learning and they ask questions offline and they, have maybe reached out to some of the board members. By the time they get to looking for individuals, they might say that they might be like, oh, hey, Adam's been at the last 5 meetings, and now he's applied and now he's going to go through the nomination process. And so Adams, if you've been going for 5 months, they know you versus, Joey Smith, who just applied yesterday. So I would say go about it that way. But overall, try to find at least like your top 5 boards. And like I said, I don't mind at all touching base with each of you and going through your top 5 and letting you know the status of when the mayor's gonna appoint to those, or I can give you some guidance where I'll say, of these 5, 2 of these are really hard to get on, but let's work on these other 3 that are more plausible for you to join.
Maria, Adam, thank you. That was a really good question. Maria, thank you for that answer. Maria, are there some boards that maybe don't look very interesting on paper that are actually doing really interesting work?
Yes. So I think, again, I mean, it's what interests you, right? One board that I even, when I got into this role, I didn't even know about is called the Automotive Board. So the Automotive Board is the body that decides whether businesses get, it's for new and used auto dealerships. It's also for sort of like the repair shops. And it is also for tow truck operators within the city of Houston. And so one of the things that this body does is they review cases of truck drivers who might have a criminal record. And so sitting alongside the board is the police department, who provides their criminal background, their criminal records to the body. They review the evidence, they review the person's history. They, let's say someone had a DUI from 10 years ago, there might be a testimonial from their pastor, from their spouse, who are vouching for this person and saying, yes, he had a DUI 10 years ago, but he's been clean. And so this body looks at all of that information and determines whether that person should get the license to operate within our city. And I think that's important because, you know, a lot of us, unfortunately in life, you might get that flat tire at, you know, at 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. And so you want to make sure that the tow truck driver that's approaching you is someone who is safe, you know, to be around. And so I think that's a prime example. That particular board has I believe either one or two positions that are simply set for a citizen of the city. Some of these boards, when you look at the description, some of these boards do have specific requirements that that make sense, because if the board is deciding on something that has to do with like subject matter, then you want obviously individuals with that background who are going to know whether, for example, a project is safe to approve versus, you know, dangerous to the community, or a dangerous project to undertake off the bat. And so there's that.
It's so interesting that Houston citizens, just community members, are really making important decisions about the city. Like, I guess in my mind in years past, before I knew about all these boards and commissions, I really thought this was all just government work, but it's not. You know, the way our city works is really dependent on active participation with community members. And this Chime group, I mean, you guys are in a really good position to help your city grow and develop through some of these organizations. Madeline has a question about the board meetings, Maria, about if they're virtual now, and when in person, where are they?
So again, that all depends on the particular board. So when they go from virtual back to in person, I think obviously will depend when more people are vaccinated, and I think COVID is more under control. But it's really part of the reason why they are able to be online is because of the governor's, I don't know what it is, designation or mandate, where in terms of the Texas Open Meetings Act, we're able to have them online. So I imagine once his office says you can no longer have them virtual, that'll kind of force people to have to go back into a building to have these meetings. But so it just depends. So like the Automotive Board meets at the Permit building, which is right here off of Washington, close to the like downtown aquarium. The Library Foundation meets at the Julia Eidson Library here on Walker Street in downtown. The Port of Houston Board meets at the port buildings themselves. The Parks Board meets, I forget what the building is called, but it's off of 610 and Memorial. Maybe it's like the Arboretum. I forget the name of the building, but anyway, so it just depends on the board itself.
Any other questions for our panelists before we let them go today? Anything else you guys want to share with us about your organizations or information that might be helpful for the group?
Claudia or Brooke, do you want to share anything? If not, that's fine. I just thought I'd give you guys a chance to say something if you wanted to.
I think you covered it all very well, Chris.
Sure.
But we're here in case you have any questions. I'll go ahead and just add our emails to the chat box. Thank you, Kate.
To give a shout out to Liza, who's on this call.
Woo-hoo! Good to see you.
You too. So obviously I'm a UHD graduate, and Liza works at UHD. And so over the years, we've just developed a really great friendship. And so even through that, for example, I reach out to Liza for recommendations from UHD alumni for boards and commissions.
That's great.
And we totally appreciate that.
I love that connection. That's terrific.
That's the beauty of groups like this and others, right? You never know the power of networking and how it can come back and really support networks that you care about over time, inadvertently. So I knew Maria before she got this fancy job, and then she got this fancy job, and it's like the gift that keeps on giving, you know? So keep your relationships, keep in touch with people.
And Maria, speaking of your fancy job, it does seem like you have a very cool job.
Thank you. There's never a dull, dull moment for sure. I might be working on like the Parks Board, and then I get an emergency call about we really have to appoint to the Planning Commission, you know, so it's like constantly shifting from departments and topic, and but I really enjoy what I do. And I will give since I kind of got a new assignment recently, I am looking for individuals who have any sort of background with like criminal law or criminal justice background. So if you guys know of anybody with that type of background, please let me know. I put my email in the chat.
Okay, great. Good. Well, this was really terrific. I think you gave our group some really good insight on how they can get more involved with the city. These are great opportunities, and I hope everybody will take advantage of these. So I will let you guys go. Maria, I know you're running off to another meeting, busy day on Friday. Chime Group, if you guys have an opportunity to stick around, we have a few minutes before the end of the hour. If you want to just visit a little bit, I would love to chat with you. And otherwise, I think this will conclude our January program. All right, thank you all for being here.
Thanks for having us, Kim. We appreciate it.
Bye, Chris. Bye, Maria.
Bye.